Howdy, howdy. Welcome on into the pre-show before the free show. I always have to slow that phrase down because I'm always afraid I'm going to say, welcome on into the free show before the pre-show.
I have done that before.
That
is a mistake that has been made.
Yeah, I always got to slow it down, but we're good.
Yeah, I think about it every now and then.
I haven't messed it up yet.
Well, sometimes, too, you get into the habit of it rolls so smoothly off my tongue that I'm really not thinking about what I'm saying, and then you mess it up.
Yeah, we're good.
Someone else is sitting in the studio. Ish!
He's like,
Hello!
don't show me. Don't show me on camera.
He was hoping the camera was just broken. It was done. He could just slowly sneak out.
That was exactly what it was.
Howdy, sir.
Hi, what's up?
Doing a show. Oh, you
Yep.
can see my blanket when you do the two-shot.
Oops.
My secrets are being given away by the two-shot.
I'm wearing a
80
blanket
years
too.
old
It's okay.
secretly.
It's all secret.
Yeah. Ish is here because we're going to do a postmortem.
Mhm.
But Ish is also here to talk on the pre-show, and we go to Ish with a pre-show topic.
Oh, jeez. This is not what I expected.
You can't talk about the Titans. Well, I guess
why
you
not?
could. I guess you
was
could.
gonna say,
No.
We really could. I mean,
Or not.
the number
All right,
one
let's hear the spiel about how the right blue is better and blah, blah, blah.
Actually, there are two tones of blue. Two-tone blue, if you get it right.
Someone throw up the Britney Spears in the jersey picture
it's a
because that's
great
what I
photo.
get sent somehow it
It's a
ends up
great
either on
photo.
my Twitter feed added at me or sent directly
For
to
those of you
me.
that don't know, it's Britney Spears wearing a Javon Curse in like early 2000s jersey. It's a really good.
I was
photo.
going to say it's also super prime, and I'll tell you this because the girl, like, she's wearing super low cut jeans, and I'm
Yeah.
not talking about
It's a very
like the
Tennessee
bottom.
photo.
Yeah,
It's a very
it's like
Tennessee like photo.
it's
yeah.
back in the day in the 90s. It was real big. Like high waisted stuff was not big when it came to female jeans. It was like the super low cut, like
I'm so glad we don't live in that
uncomfortably
era
low cut.
anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, you said, what day did you wear the Titans beanie?
Monday.
It was yesterday.
Oh yeah,
Yesterday.
Wednesday, whatever.
Wednesday.
We had
I
our
don't know.
staff meeting yesterday, so it
all of our
threw
days were
everything
thrown
in my
off.
brain
But
completely off.
I went up to him and I said, Pickle said you were wearing a Titans beanie today. That's the wrong color blue. And he's like, oh, well, why is the right color blue not playing on Sunday?
No, I said if the
so good.
I said if the Cowboys are wearing the right blue, they'd be the number one seed, like the Titans. So
Did you like my impression of you?
It was so good.
No.
That's what I
It
see
was
and hear every time
terrible.
Itch talks, so I'm glad we're all on the same page here. Oh,
Well,
man.
that's
Same
good.
tone and everything. So
Yeah, I guess y'all don't have a game this week. We
no,
do
it's
have
gonna
a
be
game.
great. I get
Shout
to
out-
watch it all stress.
Stress,
free, so,
yeah.
it's gonna be
Shout
great.
out Joe Hoyt, too, because this is like a really cool thing for him.
Oh yeah,
because
49ers.
Yeah, he's a big 49ers
Is he
fan.
really? I didn't know
he
that.
grew up in California. He's here from California, and he works
Oh,
for those
cool.
of you who don't know, he works at the Dallas Morning News. And so, like, I saw on his Instagram story, his sister had shared a thing of his article and was like, this is a really cool moment for our family. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's so cool.
Yeah, I think he did the conference call with the 49ers like
Oh,
for the
that's
DMN.
cool.
That's
So
just so
he was
awesome.
tweeting out Kyle Shanahan quotes and all that stuff. So
Is
that's
he
different.
going to the game now?
I have no idea.
Yeah, because he's covering the
He's
Cowboys
got
for
to.
the.
Okay.
I think I could be wrong. I believe he helps do the says the stats are provided by the Dallas Morning News. I think I know they were for the Cotton Bowl, and he was there
okay,
doing
okay.
that. So
Oh,
I'm kind of
nice.
thinking that might be a AT&T conglomerate thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yes, I think he's covering the game for Dallas Morning News. So like to be able to do that that's cool. I
Yeah,
felt cool.
that's
Like
why-
I felt
Yeah,
proud for him.
Yeah,
you know.
it's really cool. I mean, like it's a throwback to basically the 90s, 80s when they used to meet in the playoffs all the time. So like I want to say this is the first time since like
Since
the
then,
Steve Young era, I think they met in the playoffs. So it's actually it's gonna be really really.
there's this
cool,
really
actually.
cool thing called the Google machine.
You can look that up,
When
yeah.
is the last
No, when that became the playoff draw, I think it was when the 49ers beat the Rams. That became the draw. That was kind of a pretty cool little historical deal. So, but yeah.
I can't
Anyway,
wait to
y'all can
see.
have fun
I can't wait
watching
to see
playoff games.
Jimmy G play the Cowboys. That's what I'm looking forward to.
yeah.
For no reason in particular,
No.
just
Gucci Garoppolo playing.
yeah, he's
Sure.
fun to look at.
I'm
He's
not
he's
gonna-
he's talented too, but
Sure.
he's fun to look
No,
at.
see,
I'm
you
not
can't
gonna
use
lie.
that for him because he's not fun to watch play. You
You
can't use that for him. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it depends on.
It depends
He's
on.
fun.
Depends
Sure,
on
he
what
can
you're
be fun to
watching
look
there.
at, but like he's not fun to watch play. Like there are two
Yeah.
different things there.
Yeah. That's
I don't
funny.
know. The Google machine is failing me. I'm not finding the last time. Well, I thought that would
There
be
are
a
football
super.
historians in the chat somewhere that they will probably know.
Oh,
the
yeah,
last
they're
time
probably
they
six and
played.
say,
If you know
yeah,
the answer,
actually-
put it in the chat because I'll say something about it
I
later.
think it was Steve Young when the
I want to say
49ers
someone
went to
tweeted
the
it
Super
out.
Bowl,
Yeah.
I think last, or not last, but I guess they went against Pat Mahomes. But Steve Young Super Bowl
Patty.
against the Chargers, I think, but I'm not totally positive.
Someone will yell at us eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
So until we get there, Malpal, hit the theme expo.
Pickle!
Yes, y'all. From the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Mothership here in beautiful Louisville, Texas. It is Texas Football Today, a show on the internet. My name is Ashley Pickle. I'm the video director for Dave Campbell's Texas Football, a magazine, and TexasFootball.com. Thank you for spending part of your day with us, whether you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or listening to us on the podcast, which you can subscribe to on the podcast vendor of your choice. Thank you for supporting your local mediocre internet show. I am sitting here. Sitting to my right is everyone's favorite, Ishmael Johnson.
Hello.
Howdy.
Ah.
And sitting over there at the helm, randomly yelling at various times just for fun, it is Malpal. How are you, Mallory?
I am doing well. Happy to be here as always.
Everything good over there?
Yeah.
The computer on fire yet? Like,
Nope.
we almost made
Nope.
it without Tepper this entire time, and like, why not? We might as well set it on fire tomorrow. Like,
Right.
I know we've done well. I haven't messed up too bad. We've gone live. People have been able to watch us, so
Yeah,
that's not too bad.
we're
right?
here. It's
We're here.
It's the Elmo in the fire meme. Today is Thursday, January 13th, 315 days until Thanksgiving. January 13th, the birthday of Josh Mank.
Oh.
Happy birthday,
America's
Mank.
SID.
America's SID.
Yeah.
Mank. I tweeted earlier because he always does the same thing that Grooves does, like I watching Stars game or I watching whatever. I said I wishing Mank a happy birthday. So happy birthday to Josh Mank. This is episode 1312. On today's show, my friends, Ish is here because we're continuing our college football post-mortems, taking a look at the 12 FBS teams and recapping their season. We'll do Texas State, the Bobcats with Ish, and then in the back half of the show, we will be joined by Marlin head coach Ruben Torres after their unbelievable turnaround in a state semifinal run this year. So excited to talk with him. But before we get there, Malpal, do we have first four through the door?
We sure do. I'm going to do a combination of Facebook and YouTube because only 2 people commented on YouTube
Shame.
and 2 people commented on YouTube.
Math.
We'll do
Math is always
Facebook first. We'll do Guy Frazier, Ed McElroy,
McElroy.
McElroy,
Hello, Guy.
Daryl Burks, and then of course we'll just do 2 on YouTube. Daniel Agnew and Aaron Arbuckle. Welcome in all 5
I think that
of
was
you
five.
fellas. I don't
First
know, I
5
just wanted
through the
to go
door.
ahead and- 5 through the door today.
Welcome in, friends. All right. Without further ado, the reason that Ish is here, and we'll get to this because I know he just dreads spending time with us.
Oh, I am looking
hates
to
it.
leave. immediately.
He might leave during the middle of this segment. Stay tuned to find out. But we are going through at the offseason right here and taking a look at our college football postmortems where we go through, we talk about the offenses, defenses, the team MVPs, and then we wrap it out with a way too early what to expect in 2022 preview. But we're going to take a look at those Bobcats out of San Marcos. And Malpal, what do we have up first?
We'll do our overall offensive grade of the season, and Ish and I decided to give them a C- for various reasons. Now they went 4-8, right? Which is the best that they've done since 2014, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
Best that they've done since 2014. But I was looking at it, and they were 2 overtime wins away from being 2-10.
Sure.
That's a little frustrating. What are your
Sure.
thoughts on this offense?
Yeah, I mean, so if you watch the offense in the last half of the season, it definitely was not the offense that they probably headed into the season looking to run. As you guys know, Jake Spavital comes from that kind of air raidy tree. He's done
Right.
not strictly air raid, but he comes from that line of thinking. And that is more or less his bread and butter. When he has his personnel, it's wide receiver screens, tunnel screens, setting up, getting people in space, and then getting something vertical, setting up something vertical. Well, if you watch they kind of wanted to do that early in the season. Didn't really work. I don't think they had the wide receiver blocking that really to set up some of those screens. I thought the offensive line play was fine, but it wasn't. And I think the biggest problems was Brady McBride took a step back.
Right.
And he really put the ball in some very dangerous situations. Eventually, they go to Tyler Vitt, and we'll get to Tyler Vitt later, but they kind of transform into more of a balanced attack where they're using the quarterback run a little bit more, quarterback power, design runs, inside zone, and they kind of patch together an offense as the season goes along.
Which is never ideal.
Never ideal, right, exactly. You guys will talk about North Texas later on down the line. They did it probably to a better extent, kind of reinvented the offense a little bit, and it worked for them. Texas State, not as well as that, but in a similar fashion, kind of changed their identity a little bit. That's why I didn't give them a failing grade. It's a C- because they did end the year better.
Right.
The running backs produced, Tyler Vitt produced, and I think that they were able to kind of stumble to the finish line.
Yeah. The stat that stuck out to me, and Craven had put this in his kind of Texas State recap, but Brady McBride, 12 touchdowns, 10 interceptions.
Yeah.
We talked about this with Austin Awney, that he was, I think, 9-9, and it's like when you start dipping down into that 50% almost even ratio, again,
you get
not
in
a math
trouble.
major, but that's not good. And you can't leave that much susceptibility available and expect to win football games. Like that's where and correct me if I'm wrong, when Texas State season started, we all thought, and especially you thought, that Brady McBride was going to be
that
the
guy
that they could count on.
Yeah. I mean, so last year he ended the year very well, like legitimately. He got benched in 2020. I think he came back for the Georgia Southern game, I think. I couldn't remember exactly where. But last 4 games, he was completing 70% of his passes. He threw like 1 pick to like 9 touchdowns. It was something. It was like an insane ratio, and he really ended the year well. Talking over the spring, Chick Spavital's mentioned he took massive strides, etc. So I expected that to continue. And there were just some things in his game. One, I don't think his pocket presence is ideal. I think once there is pressure, he moves out, and I think he still has that mentality of like the best player at Coppell, where it's like, I can outrun everybody on this defense, right? And so when it gets to it, Tyler Vitt, where the difference is, Tyler Vitt, one, is a better designed runner. He's a bigger guy, so he can kind of take a lot of those quarterback draws, and but he's also a lot more decisive. If he's going to tuck and run, he's going to tuck and run. If he's going to throw, he's going to stand in the pocket. Brady McBride still is kind of the run backwards 5 yards, see if he can elude the defender. Problem is defensive
End
end.
up losing 6 yards.
Right, you end up losing 6 yards because the defensive end can tackle you at this level.
Right.
And so I think that's where and then of course just accuracy issues, and he's not the strongest arm. So I think overall there were some things that I think lingered from last year that just I think cascaded to what he ended up becoming, and they've addressed it. They got Lane Hatcher from who's Arkansas State starting quarterback. They got him in as a grad transfer, so they've addressed that position to kind of create some competition going into spring.
Yeah. Moving on to probably the bigger problem of
Definitely.
the entire squad, the defense, and we ended up giving them a D+ on this season. Now, I think the stat that really stuck out to me the most was that defense gave up an average of 30+ points a game, which is really sad. They only had 18 sacks in 12 games as well. So that defense, to me, was the real problem of that team as a whole.
Yeah. This defense, I don't think this defense had really any depth, and I think that that's something that they gambled on, because everybody's going to talk about the transfer policy, things like that, and the defense is where they really hit that side of the ball, where they hit that transfer policy. There were some personnel issues towards the end to the start of the year that kind of baffled me. I've been trying to talk to people in the program to see what kind of went on there. Jaron Morris, who was one of their staples of their defense past couple of years, was playing like special teams at some times, and it's like, what is he doing there? I don't think they ever really figured out their secondary, whether that was due to injury or just like performance or whatever. In the third, I was looking up something in the second half of games, this team just straight up collapsed.
Right.
They averaged, I believe they gave up, I have it right here, almost 3 points more per third quarter than they did last year. They basically allowed, I think it was close to, they couldn't get off the field last year they had an issue of getting off the field, but I want to say they averaged, basically teams averaged 7 third down conversions per game against them, which is near the bottom of the country. And I don't know. I want to say the issue with that is you look at the last name of the defensive coordinator, Zach Spavital.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's going to be a change there, but I wonder if this was an issue of guys not being familiar with each other,
Right.
or if there is a schematic issue, which I think the third downs come into play. I think that might be a schematic issue, which I don't know what happens on that side of the ball going forward.
Right, because then you start pushing family matters, so that's
Right.
never fun. But no, I think you hit the nail on the head. One, I feel like so much of the blame wants to go to those defensive backs because, quite honestly, they were awful. But when the third down percentage, the defense allowed opponents to convert 46.37% of third downs.
Yeah.
I mean, that again, we're almost up to that 50% ratio, and that's something that you can't happen. So was it just the defensive backs, or was that defensive line just as equally awful? And it's like I feel like all of the talk, all of the pressure gets put on those defensive backs because it was I don't know what to do with my hands every time they walked out there. But I think fundamentally it was just a massive confusion. They never looked like they knew what their job assignment was.
It looked like, it was bad when 3rd and 9, it was like, I don't know, they could probably still get this.
Yeah.
I
Right.
watched there were so many times where, and specifically it was the UIW game, right? And of course, Cameron Ward is a fantastic quarterback. Eric Morris, of course, is now the offensive coordinator at Wazoo. Cameron Ward's following him there. So obviously they're FBS caliber. There was an FBS quarterback and an FBS caliber coach on that side. But every single time he was the best player on that field.
Right.
And he was having
torched him like 350 some odd
whatever he
yards.
wanted against that defense. It was just like, okay, cool, 3rd and 8 doesn't matter. 3rd and 9 doesn't matter. And there were those situations where they were generating 3rd and longs, and it was like, okay, cool, let's see. First down. It just happened to it. And I don't know if this is they couldn't generate pass rush, and I mean that's probably it. They didn't get many sacks, as Mallory mentioned. They couldn't get much pass rush, so they left him on an island a lot of the time. Again, there were injury issues and kind of just, I don't know if some guys didn't pan out that they thought would pan out, but that's kind of the risk you take when you take this transfer policy. I don't know. It was a lot of confusion, and I think rightfully so, it's kind of a mixed bag when it comes to how the fan base feels because, as Mallory mentioned, 4 wins, first most since 2014. Right?
Improvement is improvement.
Improvement is improvement, but also there's a loss to an FCS program in there.
That can't happen.
That
One
can't
that's
happen.
right down the road.
Exactly.
Too. Like
One
it's
that's
not
right down the road.
something that you haven't ever seen before that's from a
Exactly.
totally different state. It's right there.
And then
Right,
one of them was
right.
a 45-0 blanking against Louisiana.
Yeah.
Louisiana's great, but you shouldn't be losing 45-0 in conference.
No, and
No.
they're what? Louisiana's in the West, and they were second in the West.
They're second in the West, and they had 2 conference wins.
You
Right.
Sorry, 3
literally-
conference. They beat Arkansas
You
State.
can't have that much of a gap between the
first and
first
second
place
place team.
and second place. Like, what? First off, what does that say about the rest of that stinking conference?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
The
Yeah, that's
division's
not a good.
Sunbelt West is not good.
No.
But yeah, and then you had this is kind of your year to improve because after this year, you add Marshall, you add Southern Miss is kind of whatever, but Marshall, JMU is not a throw around.
No.
I mean you add decent programs. And
It's not getting any easier.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to get any easier. So it really is a mixed bag as far as that 4-8 record is concerned.
What do we got next, Malpal?
Let's move on to some good news now. We will name a team MVP, and we chose drum roll.
Sorry,
Weak
that's
drum
my
roll.
ring.
Weak drum roll. Tyler Vitt. We talked about him a little bit earlier. Kind of the saving grace. Got the offense rolling towards the end of this season.
Yeah.
He was a good choice for our MVP.
Yeah, I think you could have gone Dalton Cooper. We talked about him at left tackle. Definitely, probably their most talented player on that offense. You could have gone Calvin Hill, who averaged about 5.5 yards a carry. But I think this team really did, outside of that 45-0 loss, which was that was Tyler Vitt starting. But I think he stabilized something. He stabilized the offense to where they had a rhythm, they had an identity, and they had kind of a game plan. Because, again, with Brady McBride, they had a game plan, right? But you really could only do one thing with him. You couldn't do many designed runs because he's not a big guy and he's not the fastest player. And so he's a very quick player. I think if you watch him play, you can tell he's somebody who watched Johnny Manziel,
Right.
Because it's not he's deadly fast. He's just very quick and he's very quick-witted, and that gets him in hot water. But the problem is when you can't throw the ball, he's not really fast enough or big enough to handle the runs. And so Tyler Vitt gave them that element, and so it gave guys like Calvin Hill somebody in the read option game, in the quarterback power game, to where, okay, we got to worry about the quarterback now. And so while I think Calvin Hill's probably the most productive player on that offense, the offense changed when Tyler Vitt came in. And I think, honestly, that's a kid who worked under 3-4 different systems. He's graduated now, but he's, to me, kind of an underrated contributor over the last 4 years of the program struggled, obviously the past 4 years, but he's been somebody who consistently, different coaches, different coordinators have been able to look to and say, yeah, you're in. Like, we need you right now.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too. We're not talking about an Alabama and a Georgia here, where not only do you have to have very sound fundamental play, you also have to just have guys that can out-athlete you.
Yes.
We're not talking about that kind of level. So when you have a quarterback that, doesn't have to be the biggest, doesn't have to be the strongest, but is very, very quick and decisive, I think that gives just an aura of confidence to the linemen, to the receivers, of knowing, hey, we're going to be able to at least go out there and confuse defenses a little bit, and that goes a long way at this level of play.
Yeah. And I think when people forget that when Jake Spavital came in a couple years ago, Tyler Vitt was a starting quarterback going into A&M. People thought it would be Gresh Jensen at the time, a JUCO guy who was the former quarterback of the OC at the time, Bob Stitt, in FCS level. People were like, oh, that's the guy, right? No, Jake Spavital was like, they rally around Tyler Vitt. And so, like, he's like, I'm not going to take that away from the locker room. And he was a starting quarterback from the Everett Withers era. So he's been, again, multiple coaches, multiple coordinators, and systems to where they're just like, we just need somebody that the guys trust, that can, like you mentioned, give us an identity and be able to make these play calls and say, okay, here's some structure that he can work with.
Yeah,
and
go be a leader.
Exactly. He's done it. Again, you look at the numbers. Numbers aren't going to be great. 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 800 yards passing, less than 55% completion. But the fact is, they knew that the ball wasn't going to be put in bad situations, and they knew that they could just get some stable quarterback play for a period of time.
Have an off season and then go from there.
Right. And finally, we will move on to our 2022 expectations for this Bobcats team. Now, I think they're returning, according to Craven's article, he said that they're returning 10 starters on offense and maybe 5 or more starters on defense, which to me is really good news because you're going to have that veteran kind of staple to your team, and hopefully you can get more depth from that. We'll kind of look at their schedule over here. I've got it pulled up. Now, their preseason schedule, not their preseason, their pre-conference schedule, I should say, doesn't look too difficult to me. They open with Nevada, followed by FIU, which they beat them in overtime, I believe, this year, correct? Then they travel to Baylor, which is...
They only lost to Baylor by 9.
Yeah.
I mean,
they played Baylor as well.
Right,
well as anybody.
And then they end it with Houston Baptist. Now, they have potential to go 3-1 before even starting conference play. Well, they open conference play with App State, but they have the potential to go 3-1 next year, I think, as before they even start Sun Belt play.
Yeah, I think the interesting part with this is, one, you're once again dealing with probably the transfer portal again. Jake Spavital basically said that, the decent part about the reason why there's not buzz on signing day is because the transfer portal doesn't adhere to signing day. They could sign a guy in July, and, it doesn't matter because he's a transfer. But I do think the non-conference schedule plays better. Nevada has a new coach coming in, I think Ken Wilson. So I don't think there is as – we'll see where they are.
Right.
FIU also has a new coach coming in. That program is – I've had issues with Texas State, but that is one program
literally
in the country.
broken.
Yeah, I was about to say, it might literally be broken. Baylor obviously is Baylor, and Houston Baptist, I think 3-1 is realistic to head into non-conference, head into conference play. But it just comes down to me, who are the playmakers on defense that you go get? Because I do think that is where the transfer portal has to hit again. Is Lane Hatcher the guy quarterback? If he is, okay, what does this offense look like now? Because you need. I think Jake Spavital is at his best, and we saw it at times last year against Boston College, against other teams where he's able to call those wide receiver screens, set up things for guys like Marcel Barbie, but you need wide receivers who are able to block those screens and develop that short game so then you can set up the vertical game. What does that look like? Does he feel confident in the guys that he has there to kind of develop and run that better? Or my gut feeling is yes, because you don't get a guy like Lane Hatcher if you don't, because Lane Hatcher is very similar to Brady McBride, similar build. honestly similar kind of loose handle with the ball a little bit. He's kind of a risk taker as well, but I think that type of quarterback shows me that they say, no, we like the guys that we have here. We need somebody who can just get them the ball.
Right, and that's, I think, the key portion there is finding consistency somehow, some way, and developing it. Because if you're going to, he's made it, Spavital in his time there has made it very, very clear. Last year, obviously, and like you said, everyone focuses on this, but he didn't bring in a single high school player. It was all transfer things. So that is fine if that's what he's going to buy in and do.
And it's fine if it works.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
And so at some point, that has to start working, and this is the point that it has to start working. And two, you have got to just see him. If the strategy that you're going to do is we want a high turnover rate and bringing in new people, you have to be able to start right now in January setting that fundamental of consistency, and that way you're consistent for 1 year, and then if you want to get a whole new level of consistency the next year, perfectly fine, but it has to be consistent for a calendar year, you know?
And I'll again, the transfer thing's on the mind of a lot of coaches, a lot of recruiting guys I talk to, and fair enough, right? This is the state of Texas where you should be able to recruit high school players out of literally anywhere. San Marcos is a good location if you can get guys to visit, and it really is a pretty easy spot. So I will give kind of a half and half, right? I'll accept that criticism as valid, but I'll also say, one, Spavital admitted to me like early on that he wasn't here to rebuild anything, right? He felt that this program was ready to compete now. And what do you do when you're ready to compete now? You bring in talent that's ready to play. And so I understand. That's what happened with SMU. Remember, a couple years ago, SMU went and got a bunch of transfers.
Sonny Dykes really got that portion rolling.
But the difference is
it worked.
It worked. They won, and they used that to kind of build a foundation to then recruit high school players. Right. And so they added to that. So was that the ideal strategy? Was 2021 was the year that they launched, maybe get bowl eligibility, then kind of use that momentum to go into the high schools? I don't know. I don't think so, because the other thing is, and we'll kind of filter this out as the year goes along, or as the years come along, COVID, I know very much, and for Texas State in particular, messed up a lot of their roster building because they had a young team that all of a sudden got younger because everybody was back. Right. And so if you go look, Calvin Hill, technically he's a junior, I guess, I think, and he's still a freshman if he's listed. And so I don't know how that affected their kind of long-term planning, where it's like we have 2 years to maybe more or less punt on high school recruiting because everybody's going to be a freshman still at age 21.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if they kind of, or I think that was their planning basically. So how that comes now, I don't know. I will admit they're offering 2023s pretty early.
Okay.
So I don't know if this was something that they've had in mind, or saying, okay, 2023 is going to be our year to kind of get back into
it. Yeah, roll the dice and skip a few steps.
Right, we'll see. But again, the pitfall you fall into is if transfers don't work out, well, you got to probably push them out the door, bring in some more, and it becomes like a kind of a vicious cycle.
Exactly.
Right. Now, I will ask you, do you think Jake Spavital is on the hot seat, or what do you think he has to do this year? What does he have to produce this year to keep his job for a couple more years?
I think you got to get to a bowl.
I don't really think that's unrealistic looking at their schedule. I think they could easily, maybe not easily, but I think that it is a possibility that they could get to 6 wins in the season.
I think so. Texas State has a new athletic director, quote unquote new, Don Coryell. He was the lieutenant to Larry Tice, stepped up into the job, and he's done some interesting things. There's been like cautious optimism surrounding that hire because, one, the previous administration was not loved at all, but also he was technically part of that. Right. But also a lot of the players and boosters like him a lot more. And he's been doing a lot of the right forward-facing things. After the Louisiana loss, which I'd never seen before, he released a statement more or less saying that Jake Spavital, vote of confidence, Jake Spavital won, but also that the loss was kind of unacceptable, but also that he's going to increase the recruiting budget. They're very things like that where it's like, okay, I've never seen that before. Right. I do wonder if he sees this as kind of his next big move. Right. Right. If whatever happens with Jake Spavital, whether it's the decision to keep him or not, I think he has one more year. I think this is his last year or heading into his last year. I can't remember exactly how his contract is, but I do think that he has a good relationship with Jake Spavital because he was part of the administration that hired him. But I do think this is kind of a prove it year.
Oh, yeah.
For Texas State, because at this point, if they don't get to a bowl, are they still not establishing themselves in the recruiting trail? Does this call for kind of a tear down rebuild type of deal?
Oh, yeah. And when a boss's job depends on what he does with your situation, that's never a situation. If I'm Jake Spavital, that's never a situation that I want to be in. Yeah. But that also at that point forces him to say, all right, guys, we got to wake up yesterday, so let's go.
Exactly. Texas State's not a program that can afford to be left behind, because we're seeing what's happening down the road at UTSA. We're seeing even North Texas, where 6-6 was considered a disappointing year for North Texas, and it wasn't 5, 6, 7 years ago where North Texas and Texas State were probably in the similar boat.
Right.
So,
exactly.
That's
all
it
right.
from me.
All good. There it is, our 2021 Texas State football post-mortem. Ish, thanks for hopping on with us.
Yeah, for sure.
Now you can get out of there. We'll quit
You can leave us
badgering you.
You can leave now. We'll give you permission.
Appreciate Ish hopping on. Oh, she already turned your mic off. Beautiful. Kick him out. There he is, Ishmael Johnson. We appreciate him hopping on.
I was tired of
us. We are Texas Football Today. We're here every weekday at noon talking football in the Lone Star State. We hope you will consider becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber at texasfootball.com. The poor people that listen to the podcast are going to be like, what is going on with these crazy women? If you become a Dave Campbell Texas Football subscriber, we will send you this awesome Rising magazine. Powers work super hard on it. It takes a look at over 400 different recruits in the state of Texas, kind of our DCTF top 100, all the sorts of fun and rankings there. All right, Malpal. We got one more thing to do here. Let's head over to the hotline and bring in the head coach of the Marlin Bulldogs, head coach Ruben Torres. Coach, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are things in beautiful Marlin, Texas?
Oh, things are going well. Basketball's underway. Off season just kicked off earlier this week. So, we're back to the grind.
So I'm going to give people some backstory. If they don't know, you're an El Paso guy, had 2 different head coaching jobs there, had a quick stint at Franklin before we flash back now to February of 2021, and the Marlin Bulldog position comes open, and you step back into a head coaching role. Take me back to that time. What made Marlin the right job for you?
I think, first of all, for me personally, I felt like I was pretty stagnant in El Paso, and I wanted a new challenge. And, I think as coaches, you always, at some point after you have some success, you wonder how good you really are. And I wanted to get out of a familiar territory and really come out here and compete against the best in a new environment. And I thought Marlin, with the talent that they had, I felt like it was a good opportunity to come in here and change things around. Obviously, I have a lot of belief in myself and my ability to coach. And I was really excited just seeing the type of athletes that they had and the vision of the district and the superintendent and what he was about. And I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to take over.
Well, and that's the thing. I love how you said that, too, of really wanting to test yourself to a certain extent, because let's call it how it is. The Marlin program was a program that had been struggling. I mean, as close as 2018, they were an 0-10 team. And so you knew you weren't going into this cushy job where they go and compete for a state championship every year, and then you turn around and, just completely flip this program within a year. What was so attractive to you about being able to take a struggling program and just run with it?
I think, my first head job was similar as far as the struggles went. So I had that experience. And then, of course, just over the years, your philosophy changes. You learn what to do, what not to do. But, let's face it, coming from El Paso, you're not going to land a quote unquote premier job. And so it was an opportunity to come out and either take an assistant job in the Metroplex or land this head job. And so either way, taking this job, I knew that to get a head job out here, it was going to be a program that, needed some change. I mean, that's why jobs open, right, for the most part, because previous staff didn't win. Um, and so, I just, I trusted myself, I trusted my faith, and I reached out to a lot of people that I consider mentors and took a lot of advice and went for it.
Now, when we say you turned the program around fast, I mean, we mean fast. Y'all had a state semifinal run. I was there at the game against Holly. Before we get to the on the field play, the one thing that I'm always curious about to know with a coach that starts a program like this basically and trying to rebrand everything, when you go into the off season and you're looking to implement a new scheme and to get that going in a very short amount of time, when you first get there, kind of what are the first steps that you go through of saying this is how we're going to do things and this is what we're going to do?
Well, I think those steps were probably steps 3 and 4 for me. When I first arrived to Marlin, I wanted to spend just as much time as I could with our kids and just really getting to know them. Obviously, I was very unfamiliar to them, and they were to me. So really, those first couple weeks, it was just talking to them
Mm-hmm.
and getting to know them, and we didn't really talk much football. A lot of teaching and explaining of why we're going to do things, but they had a lot of input as far as I'll never forget our first meeting with them. I asked them, tell me 4 things that you want, and they talked about being respected. They talked about competing. They talked about being taught, and they wanted to win. And so I gave them an opportunity to really voice what they wanted, and we just went from there. And then we got into, listen, whatever we were doing before wasn't working. We have to be willing to change. We have to get out of our comfort zones. You guys have to get out of yours. I have to get out of mine. And for a long time there, it was just me and one other coach in the off season,
Mm-hmm.
which ended up being a good thing because we were all forced to get to know each other.
Right.
And the kids were great. I mean, they took to me a lot faster than what I thought they were, and what I think a lot of people from the outside looking in thought that they would.
Well, man, you have me ready to run through a brick wall for you right now. Let's get to that on the field play. We'll get to your offense in a minute because I feel like it's really easy to get caught up in the explosivity of that offense. But your defense was the same way, man. I mean, from the front 7 in particular, just how quick they were, how easy they were to get in the backfield. Kind of what did you enjoy most about watching that unit gel for you this season?
We knew coming in that, defense always takes off quicker than offense.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that we had a very good defensive personnel, especially, like you said, the front 7. I felt like, and had we had Jure Bledsoe, that front 7 would have been even more impressive.
Mm-hmm.
But we made sure that we put our kids in the best positions for them to be successful. And I think that that's one of the biggest attributes of coaching. And so working with our defensive staff, I felt like we were able to put a lot of kids in the right position. I mean, Darian Gillette, who's of course the top recruit in the state,
Mm-hmm.
He played 2 positions this year that he's never played. He had never played, that hybrid linebacker and wide receiver. And so just getting kids in the right place and them believing in, hey, I'm here and I'm going to have my chance to make plays. And they really, all these kids are best friends or cousins. So they really do have a close bond. And then just us nurturing that and then teaching it and watching it grow was the funnest part, especially when you get, I think against Holly, we started 3 freshmen.
Wow.
And seeing those kids really grow up, they come in the summer and, they're freshmen. And then by the end of the season, you look at Tyron Bell, the inside linebacker, who led 2A in tackles. He's not a freshman anymore.
Right.
And so those are the things, to see the personal accomplishments of those kids and watching them smile and hold up trophies and play hard for each other.
Well, and then moving on, I mean, over to that offense, too. Talk about a unit that gelled just as well. I mean, you had explosive firepower everywhere. Traydon Butler, Darian, like you mentioned, Ty Harris. I mean, when you got to kind of sit back and watch film, just how fun was that for you to get to see, like, man, these dudes, they're like flies. I mean, they never quit moving.
Yeah, they, and I think to be that explosive with that amount of kids, you have to really tip your hat off to their football IQ and how quickly they were able to grasp the concepts and the formations and the motions. I mean, Trajan Butler, and Darian Gillette specifically, I mean, we were able to install plays where they were playing completely different positions. And so that I think that made it tough on defenses, and it gave them a chance to, or gave us a chance to exploit mismatches. But I think when the kids knew and believed that everyone was going to have an opportunity to get their touches, and that's hard to do when you have Gillette, Butler,
Right.
Ty Harris, and then we have a first-year starting quarterback coming in a new system, to get everybody touches, and then you throw in Zamarian Lofton, who was a two-way guy for us, and then getting him his touches, and he was explosive for us. But they all bought in, and they all knew they were going to have their opportunities. And I think we were going into our second playoff game right after Bostonville, and I hadn't realized there was a stat that one of our assistant coaches brought to me, and Trajan Butler had 30 touches and 21 touchdowns or something like that.
Yeah,
And
so explosive is correct.
yeah, and and I'm asking myself, well, God, why am I getting him the ball more?
Right.
But so I mean, it's fun, and just to see them again, same thing on defense, just to see them play for each other and have fun and have some success on the football field that they haven't had in a long time. And especially our seniors, those kids have been through. I was their third head coach in 4 years, and for them to really buy in and step up and take leadership roles, like Ty Harris and Trey Thomas and Tremaine Richardson, just to see those guys, in their senior year on a nice playoff run where they achieved much, and we've talked about it here, the Marlin story, about how much bigger than football this was, because this community had been through so much, not just with COVID, but the freeze and the threats of the shutdown of the school and academics and all the negative press. And I really believe that this team, these players, saved, our city and gave them new hope and a new burst of energy. And our community traveled with us all year round, and it was really special to see and be a part of.
Yeah, man, that crowd y'all had was awesome at that state semifinal game. That was fun to watch. One more question for you here, Coach. I know it's only January, but obviously football coaches, they don't turn their brains off. They're always thinking about football. And so when you look at what you have coming back, a lot of young guys with a lot of talent, what are you excited for about this 2022 squad?
Well, we had a team meeting yesterday, and we talked about you're only as good as your last game, and we can't get comfortable and satisfied. What they did was definitely great, and they should be very proud of it. But I think last year's gone, and so the fact that we're able to have a real off season now, where the kids understand the expectations, they're familiar with the coaches, and vice versa. We should be months ahead of where we're at, and we don't have to take the time to install a base offense anymore. They know it. Our 7th and 8th grade teams both won district, and they ran our offense. So even with those kids coming up, they'll be familiar with our base, and so it is time to take that next step. I mean, we're not going to sneak up on anybody, and that's part of earning that, but. We've got to get better. We've got to get better at tackling. We've got to get better up front. You look at the state semifinal game. We made a lot of mistakes that we hadn't made in the previous couple of weeks. So getting consistent and again, just continuing to get better in all phases.
Absolutely. Well, he's Coach Ruben Torres, the head coach of those Marlin Bulldogs. Coach, congratulations on an unbelievable run, and go ahead and give your band director a pat on the back for me. When I say that that's like the best 2A band I have ever seen, they were rocking with it.
Oh, they were awesome, and this was their first year under our new band director. So absolutely, I mean, the band, the dancers, the energy. And that band is probably 80% middle school kids.
Holy cow. Wow.
So our band is impressive. I mean, they really they turn up for sure.
Yeah, we were down there vibing with it. So yeah, tell them thank you for a good time there. But Coach, congratulations. Really appreciate you joining us, and we're super excited to watch your 2022 season.
All right. Thank you, guys. Happy New Year.
Thanks, you as well, Coach. There he goes. Marlin head coach Ruben Torres. Appreciate him joining us there. And, Steph and I had kind of talked about that before that state semifinal game. Like, it's really cool to see the success that they had, just like you said, for the entire community. I mean, this is this little 2A town outside of Waco that you're going, where are y'all
Who's
from?
that?
Yeah.
Right.
And they just kept going, and Steph's going to pound his chest every single time because he put Marlin down as a sleeper pick in the magazine,
Oh, yeah.
which he was clearly
He's feeling
right
proud.
about. But when Coach Torres came there, I mean, everyone's looking, going, those small town communities, you've probably heard of the people that are going to come back. You funnel the same people in and stuff, and you're going, a guy from El Paso, where in the world is this guy coming from,
Right.
And he went out there, and I mean, he made them all just zoop. Okay,
Uh-huh.
we're here from the guy for El Paso,
Yeah.
So very, very cool. They were an exciting team to watch, and there was a lot of young kids on that team that are going to be super good. So Marlin's a program that's not going anywhere soon.
That's awesome.
Very, very cool. All right, and now one last thing to do here. We head over to Mallory Hartley for America's favorite segment, Final Thoughts.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and give you guys a tease for tomorrow. We're going to have a special guest on. Miss Erin Hardigan from Valley Sports Southwest. She's the host of the Friday Football Show, and she is going to come and help us with mailbag because she's really smart.
Oh, yeah.
And you're really smart. I'm just here. So I'll be running the computer listening to you guys spit your facts out.
No, our girl Erin Hardigan's going to come on. Most everyone who watches this show knows exactly who that is. She's been on multiple times, but we figured we would go out with a bang, and Hurricane Hardigan, as we like to call her, the Supernova. The Supernova will be joining us. We are super pumped to have her on. So, if y'all, I'm going to go ahead, and I'll put it out on Twitter later too, but if y'all have any questions already off the top of your head that you would like answered tomorrow specifically for Erin, and it doesn't have to be football related if you just want to ask her normal things. She does NBA basketball with the Pelicans and everything too, so very well versed in anything. Just tweet them at me, and I'll go ahead and start making a list. So at Ashley_pickle12, you can tweet Mallory or I, and we'll start kind of collecting those so we make sure we get as much out of Erin as we can. So we'll see you tomorrow for Mailbag Friday.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mel Pal?
We went to Stars game last night. That was kind of fun.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, we did. That
Team
was
Stars.
that was
They
a
won.
fun. Yeah, screw the Kraken. No, I'm kidding. That was a fun game to watch. But yeah, I told you yesterday that we would kind of talk about it today. It was just a really
good
fun
game.
game to be at, and we had fun together. So
Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. Malpal got her chicken strips, so don't
I
worry.
did. I did. Oh yeah, that's right. They were really good. So
We're literally fixing to walk in the door, and she was like, "I'm so excited for the chicken strips," and I was like, "Are you excited for
That
the
was
game?" Or
that was my first stop at the concession
oh yeah,
stand
no
was
man,
those
she
chicken
took
strips.
a beeline. Like we went up the escalator, and because we had peasant seats up there, it was great. But we went up there, and it was instant straight to the concession stand for Malpal. So
It was
yeah,
awesome.
Go Stars! Always a fun time. I appreciate all of our friends out there that we were able to see. So that was fun. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Make sure to like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Twitter @DCTF. Subscribe to that YouTube page, youtube.com/Dave Campbell's TF. And, of course, see all of our work on TexasFootball.com. Thank you to Ish for coming in and doing that Texas State Postmortem. To Marlin head coach Ruben, Torres. For Mallory Hartley, I'm Ashley Pickle. Vince Young, please come get your Player of the Year trophy. We will see you tomorrow for Mailbag Friday with Erin Hardigan.